Business Webinar Strategies, Lead Generation Webinars. Now that you've got a clearer picture about what a webinar is, web hosting services, and the specific features you may need or can take advantage of, it's time to start focusing on specific webinar strategies, starting with free lead generation webinars. This type of webinar is best designed to build your mailing list while boosting your credibility and expert status. The sole purpose being to keep people engaged in conversation with you. The best result for them is finding an authoritative, fresh, new source of niche information. For you, it's signing up pre-qualified future customers hungry for what you have to share or teach. Understanding your target market. A lead is nothing more or less than someone likely to buy. If you're selling short-body Ford pickup trucks and someone gives you a lead, they're hooking you up with people shopping for a vehicle who are more likely to buy from you. Someone just beginning to explore pickup trucks is not as strong a lead as someone who specifically wants a Ford short body, but they are still more likely to buy from you than someone who is shopping for a four-door sedan, or someone who isn't considering a new car at all. So your job when setting up your lead generation webinar is to pre-qualify potential attendees as thoroughly as possible. Remember, you'll most likely be limited, if you're starting out and are under budget constraints, by a webinar hosting service that sets a low limit on webinar registrants, such as 20 to 25 only. So you want those 20-odd people to be as highly qualified as possible, and your website, promotional efforts, emails, and sales pages, if you use one, all need to do that very specific job. By all means, do your research. Conduct polls, survey social media platforms where your market is most active, invest time in article marketing, guest posts, and blog posts, and be available for interviews. Then create a profile of your perfect attendee, ensuring you have at least 5 strong specifics you've narrowed the generic profile down to. For example, tradesman over 40 years old, interested in short-body Ford pickup trucks with tonneau covers, trailer sway control, and 6-speed transmissions. But it doesn't matter if your ultimate goal is to sell pickup trucks or ballet shoes. At this stage, all you need to focus on is making friends with your pre-qualified target audience. To continue with our car shopping analogy, 2 equally fatal mistakes to make. First, trying to sell your car shopping lead that pickup truck straight away before you've barely been introduced. And at the other end of the scale, forgetting that you do ultimately want them to buy. It's true that after your first webinar, your follow-up feedback and stats may actually prove that you've gotten your marketing mix slightly wrong or missed out on a key fact about your ideal attendee that you didn't know. And that's okay. Just take the new fact and adjust. No big deal. Remember, you're still making friends and finding out whether or not you both like lattes or prefer donut shop coffee. Troubleshooting your results. But what happens if your research seems to bring conflicting results? For example, you discover that your target audience seems to firmly split into 2 distinct groups. A wants to know all about one aspect of your niche, while B is strictly concerned with another. This is the point where you will need to decide, are you going to serve both groups? Can you serve both groups? Are both groups potential buyers? Will they open their wallets in the future for the sort of information or product you plan to sell? If both groups seem to be strong prospect material, don't make the mistake of trying to cover both areas of interest in one single lead generation webinar. Instead, plan to create a second, separate webinar, or else focus only on one group for now. Trying to serve both in the same webinar will please no one and reduce future conversions and contact opportunities. Another mistake new webinar presenters often make, doing all their surveying before planning the webinar, and then stopping survey efforts. Think back to memorable webinars you yourself have attended. The presenter most likely asked you to name your 3 biggest concerns, or bluntly invited subtopic suggestions in some similar way. This is sound strategy that shouldn't be ignored. Remember, at this point, you're still getting a feel for your ideal attendee, just as she is taking the first step towards getting to know and trust you. Interaction is good, especially before the webinar. That's what conversation is all about, and good conversations lead to credibility and friendship. But what do you talk about? Identifying your target attendee is one important part of planning an effective lead generation webinar. The other half of that coin is deciding what to talk about. Here's a tip. Lead generation webinars are usually informational in nature. You are telling your audience something they really want to know on a subject they are passionate about. Ideally, it's something other presenters or competitors haven't tackled. If they have, then you will want to either give the subject a new twist or provide the ultimate drop-dead simplification of a complex subject, complete with the answer that no one else wants to share. You're supplying the one big secret no one else will give away for free. Whether that's how to do something or facts they desperately want to know is entirely up to you. Ask yourself these essential questions. What can't they resist? What are they saying they want to know? What can drive them to action and inspire them to sign up for this particular webinar? Researching your competitors. Don't just research your target audience. Take a good look at your competitors too. What is the one piece of information they don't or won't part with, except at a high-ticket or one-on-one coaching level? What do you have to offer that is different and unique? What are the demographics at sites like Alexa, SEMrush, and Quantcast tell you about this particular niche audience? You're a member of this niche. What one thing would you love to have had more information about when you were just starting out, or at this time last year? Planning your lead generation webinar. You've got pre-qualified target attendees. You've got your absolute gem of information you're going to give them, for free, no strings attached. Now it's time to start planning, for real. Here's a look at some answers to questions you may be asking yourself at this stage. What is the best day of the week to hold my webinar? Midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. But do take the time to survey your specific niche target to make sure they follow this accepted norm. How long should my free lead generation webinar be? The accepted length is somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes. If audience interaction is high, you can carry it to 1 hour maximum. How many should I invite? One common beginning presenter mistake lies in inviting approximately the same number of people that your webinar hosting provider allows. For instance, if your webinar hosting provider specifies a maximum of 25 people, inviting 30 people. Given the statistics showing an average response rate for all webinars of less than 50%, it would be more effective if you invited 50 to 60 people to your 25-seat event, besides which, you can legitimately use the principle of scarcity. There's only 25 seats available, to encourage them to take action and register today. How long before the webinar should I start promoting and inviting? Between the 3rd and 2nd week before your webinar is generally considered the optimum time to initiate invitations. Don't start too far in advance, and don't leave it to the last minute. 8 ways to plan and prep for your webinar. One of the most important jobs a lead generation webinar should do is to engage your attendees. Don't make it easy for them to walk away. Give them powerful reasons to stay. Your content will be key, of course, in achieving this end, but there are also simple strategies you can use to boost your efforts. Number 1, plan your handouts. Think back to those great webinars you've attended. Some of them may have contained handouts, such as worksheets, diagrams, short reports. All these can help enhance the value of your lead generation webinar. But if adding value is the only reason you're creating those handouts, You're missing a great opportunity. Use them to raise your potential attendee's curiosity level. Promise something with that handout, something that can only be completed or filled if she attends. Tantalize, promise, intrigue, and excite interest with your handouts or work materials. Your potential attendee should be thinking, "Wow, if that's just the worksheet, I can't wait to hear what the presenter has to say." Number 2, surprise your attendees. Plan handouts afterwards too, or other unexpected free gifts that only people who stick with you to the end of the webinar can receive. A reward for participating. Many people lead the attendee straight to a paid offer, and this is certainly a valid tactic. But if you are able to surprise your attendee instead with a fabulous bonus gift that will make her look for more from you, don't be afraid to give it away. Go for it. Consider it a lifetime investment and a real trust builder. Number 3, don't leave it all up to your webinar hosting service. Yes, most reliable services will send automatic reminders before the event, right up to an hour or less before, the times and intervals predetermined by you. But continue your principle of surprise and augment your web hosting service's automatic reminders with an email containing either a link to your handouts or a link to a short video, no more than 2 minutes in length, tops, and preferably just less than 1 minute. Number 4, make your potential attendees use their visual senses. Talk directly face-to-face in this video. Speak a little more loudly than normal and slightly more quickly. Remember to breathe. Try to smile while speaking. Not a big artificial grin, but as often as you can naturally squeeze a smile in. Be excited. Be straightforward. Say what you need to say, and cheerily end with a straightforward call to action. Something like, register while there are still seats. Remember, I'm limiting this to only the first 20 people. Do it right now and I'll see you on the 15th. You want your potential attendee to hold a clear visual image of you, being positive and excited in her mind. A video is the perfect vehicle to help you feel she knows you and already has a personal connection with you. Human nature being what it is, this means she will be much more likely to remember you and actually attend your webinar. It goes without saying you'll plan to promote your webinar in other ways too. Your social networks, more importantly, your target attendees' social networks, Twitter, your blog, etc. Number 5, use a checklist. There's a lot to do when creating a successful webinar. You should have started your planning at least a couple of months in advance. A checklist will help make sure you don't miss any steps, suffering the dreaded last-minute "oh no" syndrome, as in, "oh no, I forgot to order a toll-free number," or "oh no, I forgot to tweet the webinar starting in half an hour." Number 6, assemble your webinar aids ahead of time. You'll most likely want to integrate several communication methods while presenting your webinar: screenshots, whiteboard writing, clicking on desktop links, interacting with an audience member. All these are necessary areas to triple-check well in advance. Make sure any apps or programs are functional and that you know how to use them. Make sure your slideshow is properly sequenced and ready to roll, and all graphics or documents are in the correct order. Have graphics created well ahead of time, ditto for the handouts. Arrange for a transcriptionist to sit in on the call if you're planning to outsource and turn your webinar into an information product. Decide how you're going to record it and who is in charge of that detail. It's one of the most common mistakes, believe it or not, forgetting to record. Number 7, use a script. Don't just wing it. Even Olympic figure skaters know the danger of adding extra moves and deviating too far from the perfectly polished program they're planning to skate. Public speaking or storytelling works much better if you have some sort of written script, even if that's only a sketchy outline scribbled on the back of an envelope. Besides, a good script can be turned into an information product in its own right. a paid extra, or an unexpected post-webinar bonus. And finally, number 8, practice makes perfect. Whatever you do, choose a webinar hosting service that allows you to practice and run through your webinar more than once. Make sure your hosting program dashboard has some way of showing you what your attendee will see, such as a thumbnail of how your screen is appearing as you talk. Then run through that puppy until it's as smooth as butter. Run through it again with a couple of friends sitting in as your audience. The most reassuring key point to keep in mind: practicing your webinar is not something you do to ensure you'll be picture perfect word for word. It's really just for building your confidence ahead of time. If you enter a strange building on your way to a job interview, the fact you don't really know where you're going, running the risk of taking a wrong turn, can really add to your stress level. The same thing goes with mothers who take small children or even teenagers to their new school or college ahead of the new term. Knowing exactly where to go removes a major stress layer and helps you navigate your dashboard with confidence, focusing on your attendee and your message, instead of wondering where the mute button might be. The real thing. These are all pre-webinar tactics designed to ensure that on the day of the event, your attendance quota is full and a buzz is already generating. Now let's discuss the actual webinar itself. You've practiced until you're thoroughly familiar with your webinar hosting dashboard. You've had a couple of perfect run-throughs, so the real thing ought to be a piece of cake, right? It could very well be, as long as you've remembered to take into account that stage fright before opening night is 10 times more debilitating than stage fright during your first practice or two. Don't end up after the event, however, realizing you made these common mistakes. Rushing your speech. While it's a good idea to keep the pace lively and speak a little more quickly than normal, watch for the tendency to gabble and jump ahead of yourself. If you find this starting to happen, stop and take a deep breath before your next sentence. Remember to breathe. Being unaware of your background. If you're doing any candid webcam headshots, make sure you've thought ahead of time about the physical background and object behind you. No one expects a perfect home office background, like something out of Home and Garden, but you don't want to be like the time management and organization specialist who didn't realize a discarded sock was draped over the arm of her chair. Above all, you don't want anything that distracts, so remove that sparkly wind chime that keeps swinging in the breeze from your open window. Take the telephone off the hook. You don't really want it to ring and ring while you're in the middle of your pitch, do you? Likewise, if children are playing around your feet, that will only work if your target audience consists of moms with children of similar age. Anyone else will be distracted by it and lose focus on your message, so hire a babysitter or ask your mom, sister, or best friend to be your helper for that 1 hour. Being unaware of your lighting. Again, you don't need perfection or fancy professional lighting, but do be aware of lighting conditions if you're planning on using a video clip or webcam during your webinar. Don't just test video components out in a practice run-through. Make that run-through happen at the exact time of day you're planning for your actual webinar if you're using natural light. And remember, the weather conditions can affect and change your lighting too. Watch out for backlighting. You don't want to be in silhouette unless you're in the witness protection program or deep undercover. Watch for distracting shadows and patterns. Years ago, I saw a presentation in which the shadow of a parrot bobbed about on the wall to the right of the presenter's head. This was in a workplace training video, and afterwards we all agreed that we didn't remember a word of the instruction we were supposed to be receiving. We were all too busy being entertained by the shadow parrot. Reading your script. Think back to the last time you heard someone reading in your grade school days. Not very exciting, was it? Blatantly reading your script is the quickest way to kill your attendees' interest. Even if you use the full script as a guide, use a yellow highlighter to accent only key points to jog your memory, so you can be free to focus on the conversation. Color theorists say yellow is the best color to stimulate learning and retention. Being too slick. While professionalism normally makes for more powerful presentations, overdoing it can make your webinar seem too dry or lacking in personality. Being too sloppy. Likewise, no one wants to wait while you frantically try to find a website that no longer exists or a diagram that's missing. Not remembering who's watching. New presenters sometimes get so carried away by the bells and whistles, especially if they're including a video component, they forget who they're talking to. In other words, if you're talking to a group of corporate accountants, don't sit there in your bunny slippers wrangling your 2-year-old. Instead, dress professionally. Use a neutral background. By all means, use professionally produced, royalty-free music as an intro and outro. Stick to the point and make any witty anecdotes short. Likewise, if you're talking to a group of moms with ADHD children, don't wear a white lab coat and quote 1,000 scientific statistics. Instead, be one of them. Relate to their problem. Sympathize with their lack of sleep. Care about their child. It really just boils down to 2 things: awareness and common sense. Too many I statements. While storytelling and personal anecdotes can help make that all-important sense of connection, never lose track that it is all about your attendee. The only thing a story or anecdote should do is show her you understand her needs, fears, frustrations, or problems. Once you've done that, move on like an express train towards your main message. Stick to the point. And make sure you say you and your significantly more than you say I. Being a one-trick pony. By this, I mean not understanding the most basic principle of salesmanship and retail, and that is, people don't buy till the 7th time they visit your store. You've simply made contact and introduced yourself in your lead-generating webinar, and although for some people that's enough, they like you, they'll buy, others will need to warm up to you. This is where you need to keep up the relationship with good follow-up efforts already planned and in the wings, including any or all of the following: follow-up emails, free email courses, bonus reports or product they can instantly download, follow-up survey, postcards or snail mail letters, phone calls if they've provided their phone number, text messages if they've indicated they prefer SMS, free coaching call offer, exclusive valuable information. But the most important part not to miss when creating your lead generation webinar, and believe it or not, people new to the webinar creation process do forget this, is providing a strong call to action. In fact, it's best to invite your attendees to take voluntary action to stay in touch with you more than once during your webinar. At the beginning of your webinar, at midpoint, and at the end. Just as it takes more than one visit to a store to make some people comfortable enough to buy, it can also take more than one call to action. The first 2 should be low-key and cheerfully direct. The third can be your big push, and it doesn't have to be directed towards a sale. Instead, it can be directed towards your follow-up offer, such as your invitation to sign up for a free post-webinar coaching call or email course. If you want to move straight towards promoting your paid product, here's a secret many people take ages to learn. The higher the ticket price on any paid offer, the more you'll want to warm up or woo your new subscriber. And if your paid offer is on the higher end of the scale, be sure to provide an alternative exit offer your cash-strapped or cautious attendee can choose instead, not only so you're taking advantage of a way to make more profit, but as a way to keep your existing attendees staying interested, not running off in disappointment while mentally erasing you from her resource circle. You can make that offer a stripped-down version of your main offer, the transcript or ebook only instead of your ebook and 6 CD set, the silver version of your membership instead of the gold version. You can offer a payment plan. For those requesting a payment plan, you can pay in 6 easy monthly installments. Or you can offer a sample. Make it free and valuable, and you may inspire them to love you for life. If you choose the latter option, don't make the mistake of running with the tired old formula of showing them the what but not the how in your sample version. Instead, feed them a complete self-contained morsel. Not only will this feel like a true gift instead of bait, but a true gourmet appetizer can inspire your attendee to purchase far more powerfully than a complete meal full of empty calories. No matter what you choose to include in your webinar calls to action, make sure it's just one way to stay in touch among a steady, regular stream of dates you have planned for the immediate future. You will need to nurture your new relationship and keep it thriving and growing. You want your attendee to not only remember the face that goes with the name on her email inbox, but actually get a warm feeling and look forward to your message the next time she sees it. Finally, don't forget your lead generation webinar is just that, a way to create a buzz, get you known, generate leads, and make friends for life. The more carefully you plan it, the less opportunities to cement the relationship you'll miss. And when it comes to calls to action, don't miss the one to yourself. Move beyond planning and just do it. Make sure your lead generation webinar ensures that you are the first person your attendee thinks of when it comes to purchasing your type of product or services in the near future. In video number 3, we're going to be talking about some of the ways you can actually make money by hosting free webinar events.